So in today's video, we'll be looking at scary and true TikTok crimes that you should not watch before you go to bed.
This nurse murdered 7 newborn babies in her care.
7?
Between 2015 and 2016, nurse Lucy Letby
Can't
murdered
trust
7
nobody.
newborn babies by injecting milk, insulin, or air into their bloodstream at the Countess Chester Hospital in England. The hospital called police when there was a rising mortality rate in the neonatal unit, and doctors began to notice similarities in the deaths of these infants and asked to do a review of each case. After investigating, it was evident that someone was purposely hurting these newborn babies, causing them to either lose their lives or putting them in critical condition. It seemed like every time Lucy was caring for a newborn baby in her unit, they somehow became sick or passed away. In one instance, Lucy injected air into the bloodstream of a twin baby boy and he passed away, and then she tried doing the same thing to his twin sister, but she survived. She denied all these allegations, but after searching her home, they found handwritten notes where she confessed to killing all these babies. In one note, she wrote, "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to take care of them." She was charged in 2020, but the trial is still ongoing and it's expected to last several months.
Yo, you can't trust nobody out here, right? Like, she's supposed to be a nurse, taking care of babies, delivering your babies or whatever, right? And you expect to trust them, right? You think your baby's in good hands, but really, it's a psychopath. And, like, there's no way for you to tell that this is a psychopath or not. All she did was go to school, and graduated and had good grades, so she must be qualified to take care of children, right? It's crazy. That's just messed up. Make you not even look at Hello Kitty the same.
Caution before I actually show you this picture, because this story is true. This is the police sketch of who has been named as the Cape Intruder. All of this dates back to 2005 in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, where there was a person who looks like this, who was reportedly breaking into people's homes and watching them sleep. Like, people described that they would wake up, right, in the early mornings, and the first thing they would see was this man standing in their room, and the second they saw him, he would just bolt, like run out of the house. He never killed anybody, he never stole anything, he just, like, watched people. And the last recorded break-in was around February 2006, when he suddenly seemed to stop, and they never caught this guy. What's ironic and kind of disturbing about the photo is that he is a watcher, and it almost feels like when you're looking at it, he's watching you. And as always, if you're loving Creep Time, make sure to go follow on Insta.
He's a watcher, guys. Like, who just wants to break in and watch somebody sleep?
Wait a minute! Something ain't right!
Most disgusting and evil cases I've heard of recently. On the 7th of December 2017, teacher Thelma Boinville was desperately trying to make some extra money. She was doing a cleaning job to earn extra money for her family, and the job suited her as her 8-year-old could come along and play while she worked. This was really handy as it meant she didn't have to fork out for childcare. She set out cleaning some holiday homes on the day in question, and her daughter waited in the car. The spot was a lovely scenic place called Kelky Beach. However, instead of walking in on a normal holiday rental to clean, she walked into a nightmare. Stephen Brown and his girlfriend, Hayley Dangerand, were in the middle of robbing the place.
Oh, dang.
They were scouring through drawers and wardrobes, hunting for valuables to steal. With Thelma walking in, their plan had been foiled. They decided they needed to dispose of their only witness. The evil pair tied up the mother, whose daughter waited unsuspectingly in the car outside. They used a machete, a knife, and a hammer to murder the innocent woman. But the horror was far from over. They exited the holiday home and came across Thelma's young daughter waiting in the car. They callously
These
told
people
the
look
young
crazy.
girl, "We killed your mum," and then bound her up and gagged her. Sickeningly, they then took the 8-year-old into the home where they'd killed her mum and left her there tied up. The 2 Australian tourists who were renting the holiday home then came back and found the crime scene. The 2 killers were tracked down hours later in Thelma's car, which they'd stolen and driven off in. Hayley was actually wearing her victim's earrings at the time. They actually begged for the officers to just shoot them and end their lives, but they wouldn't get away that easily. Thelma's husband, Kevin, wasn't actually allowed to see his wife's body due to the extent of her injuries. The autopsy revealed that she'd fought for her life, with many defensive wounds indicating a struggle. Since the murder, Stephen and Hayley have both tried to blame each other. Stephen was found guilty of second-degree murder and apparently showed no emotion as the verdict was read out. Hayley is currently awaiting trial.
They both some psychos, though. No empathy for
Can you tell a
them.
place has a dark history just from looking at it? I'm gonna show you a listing and we're gonna see. Also, this is a series, so follow along. This is the Watts family home in Colorado, where Chris and Shanann Watts lived with their 2 children. Chris Watts is a family annihilator who took the life of his pregnant wife and 2 daughters in 2018.
Wow.
And despite all that, this house actually recently sold. But in the listing that was posted, you can actually see areas that were featured in the police cam footage during the investigation.
That's crazy. I
Because
wouldn't
when
want
the
to buy
crime
that
first
house.
happened, Chris pretended he had no idea what happened to his family. But you can see in a lot of this footage, he's acting so suspiciously. So much so that one of his neighbors actually tipped off to police that he thought something was just not right with Chris. We still don't know from Chris exactly why this happened, but we can infer that he wanted to start over a new life with his mistress. Chris is currently in jail, but a new family now lives inside that home. Would you be willing to live in a home like this?
For probably like $10,000, I might buy it.
Anyway, I just did something crazy, man. I just my ex-girlfriend in the head, yo.
What?
I can't go to prison, so the person that really started my depression and all of this is my ex-wife. So she next.
She
Here's my
next.
ex-wife right here.
Today's the day. They were the chilling last words heard on that
Wow.
Facebook live stream. Moments later, Jay Black would take the life of his ex-wife. Jay Black was a 44-year-old nurse practitioner from Baltimore, and in truth, his life was seemingly crumbling all around him. 3 years he'd been having trouble with his ex-wife, Wendy, who, according to Jay, did not let him see his kids. Wendy had filed multiple protection orders.
Hey, these women better stop messing around with these guys and these children. You know, they be trying to hold the children as a piece of their property when both of y'all created the child. But I don't know the backstory. Dude could have just been crazy. I mean, obviously, he out here offing people, so hey, she might have had a point.
Against Jay. She told authorities she simply didn't feel safe around him,
Right.
and all her requests were ignored by the court. Now, Jay did end up moving on from Wendy. He got a new girlfriend and ended up having a kid with her. Her name was Tara Landberg. But by the end of
Oh, he definitely got it
2021,
tight.
things turned sour and the pair separated. Now, Jay began to panic. He thought he was going to lose Tara the same way he lost his ex-wife. And then he suddenly snapped. On December the 11th, 2021, he got onto Facebook Live to make a confession about what he had done. He had just taken Tara's life. Now, as that live stream continued, it became clear that Jay was not done. First, it's hard to tell where he is, but by the end of that Facebook stream, you realize he's in front of his ex-wife's house. Jay ended up taking her life as well as his own that day. More stories about real-life people, remember to follow.
Yo, people are crazy out here, man. Wow.
Photos
They be doing
with
some wild
disturbing
stuff.
backstories, PT.16.
He was visiting his grandmother and told her he planned to go for a hike. So this guy went missing. Dalen planned to hike the haiku stairs, also known as the stairway to heaven. But his grandmother forbid it. That particular area is closed to the public. Against her judgment, though, Dalen decided he would still hike the stairs, and he set out around 11 a.m. Who had posted 4 sending photos of social media, but it would be the last time anyone would hear from him. When he didn't return home, the police were called and a search began, but days into the search, there were still no signs of Dalen. Authorities began a close look at the photos he posted to his social media when they found something unsettling. I wonder what it was. What's that? Is that a person? That is a person! In one of Dalen's photos, an unknown man can be seen crouching in the foliage. It's unknown who the man is or even if he has something to do with Dalen's disappearance. But the area was closed and no one else was thought to be there, making this even creepier. He was being followed by this unknown man, and if so, did he take this picture knowing? Neither Dalen nor his body have ever been found. I think that's what it said. That's crazy. 2 crimes out here that I've never heard of. Madeline McCann's parents lost against allegations of being involved.
As you'll probably already know, Madame McCann disappeared in 2007 from a hotel room in Portugal. But a former Portuguese detective suggested the parents were involved and the parents have lost this court battle. Madame McCann's parents alleged this damaged their reputation. However, the court ruled against this. What do you think about this situation?
I really need some more details.
If your wife is missing, why would you Google how to dispose of a woman's body? 39-year-old Anna Walsh was
Yo, you gotta watch what you Google searching because they probably can go and search that.
last seen leaving her Cohasset, Massachusetts home around 4 a.m. on New Year's Day. There hasn't been any cell phone or bank activity since that day, and she hasn't been seen or heard from again. Anna shares the home with her husband Brian and their 3 kids. Just one day after she disappeared, Brian was caught on security footage at Home Depot buying $450 worth of cleaning supplies, maps, and a tarp. Anna wasn't reported missing until January 4th from both her husband and her employer after she failed to show up to work. When investigators searched the home, they found a broken knife and blood in the Walsh's basement. During the investigation, authorities were sent to a waste facility in Peabody, which is about an hour away from the family home. During their search, they found a hacksaw, a hatchet, and a bloody rug. Also found was a garbage bag containing blood as well as human tissue, all believed to be connected to Anna's disappearance. After looking into Brian, police discovered that after Anna went missing, he Googled, quote, how to dispose of a 115-pound woman's body.
Oh, he went into detail.
Just a few days ago, Brian was arrested and charged with misleading the
He
police
just looked
investigation
crazy, don't
into the disappearance of his wife, and he has since pleaded not guilty. He's currently being held on a $500,000 bail. This is not the first time that Brian has had run-ins with the law. In 2021, Brian pleaded guilty to charges related to an attempt to scam someone in LA using fake Andy Warhol paintings. Because of that, Brian was placed on home confinement, which was still taking place up until his recent arrest. Adding to that, he was also at the center of an ongoing dispute over his late father's will. His family members accused him of destroying the document and wrongly taking over his father's estate. According to Anna's mom, Anna had texted her on Christmas and said, quote, please mama, come tomorrow, end quote. Anna's mom said that she and Brian loved each other, but this seemed to allude to some problems, although Anna didn't mention exactly why she wanted her mom to come so urgently. According to her, Anna also recently mentioned her frustration with Brian's home confinement. This forced her to temporarily live alone in a Washington, D.C. home that Anna also owned. Anna worked a lot in Washington, D.C. and would often visit the home. Anna reportedly tried calling her mom around midnight on the night she went missing, as well as once more an hour later, but her mom was sleeping and missed the call. Right after,
Dang.
she also tried calling her sister and a friend, but they also missed the call. A friend of the Walshes has come forward and stated that he spent New Year's Eve with a couple and has said that there was no indication of any tragedy or trouble. But it's now been 10 days since Anna was last seen. This is an ongoing investigation, so hopefully more answers will come to light soon.
Oh, this is ongoing. Yo, that's messed up. Yo, check it out. Just think about that, right? Your child calls you, and you were asleep, you missed the call, and then you wake up and they're missing, and you won't ever hear from them again because you missed that call. Man, y'all gotta stop leaving your phone on vibrate.
I'm sure you guys have seen this little boy's photo all over your feed page at the moment, because I have, and I don't know why, but it's everywhere. This is Riker Webb. He was just 4 years old when he disappeared for 2 whole days by himself in the wilderness. I'm sure you're probably more familiar with this
look at
photo
this.
than rather than the
When they
first
found
one.
him.
That's right, this little boy survived 2 whole days in the wilderness all by himself. He lived in the remote area of Montana in America, and on the 3rd of June 2022, he was reported missing after being seen playing in his front garden with his dog, but then when his parents went to later check, he was gone, he'd vanished. So police and family, assuming the worst, they conducted these huge searches of the area. But police's hopes were not too high due to weather conditions during the time of the search, and many other factors that sort of came into this. But miraculously, on June 5th, 2 days later, the little boy was found. He was discovered
completely different.
4 miles away from where he went missing. Besides from him being hungry and thirsty and cold, he was perfectly fine. He was in good spirits, he wasn't hurt, he was just, very clearly from the picture, a little bit shaken up. Pretty open and shut case, right? However, people on the internet did what people on the internet do, and they made it weird. And when I say made it weird, they believed that this wasn't even the same child, which, to be fair, I can totally see where
I
they're
can agree
coming
with
from
them.
because they look completely different. But imagine being 4 years old and being lost in the woods for 2 days by yourself. You are not going to look your best, are you? You're going to look dishevelled and dirty and unclean. But despite what the internet thinks, this case is one of the very rare cases that has a nice and happy ending, that he was found safe and well.
Hold on. They're talking about a happy ending, but what was the backstory? Did he ever tell them how he got lost? Did somebody take him? Did he just wander off somewhere? He was gone like, what, 2.5 miles away, and you have police searching and no one found him for 2 days. What happened? I need to know the backstory on that one.
Amusement parks meant to be filled with fun and laughter. However, that's not always the case. This is deaths
Luna
at
Park.
amusement parks.
That looked like that Travis
Case
Scott
of the Luna Park Ghost Train Fire.
little festival
Trigger
thing.
warning. It was a Saturday night, June 9th, 1979 at Luna Park in Sydney, Australia. The park was buzzing with activity, full of happy families. One of those families was the Godson family, consisting of John and Jennifer and their two little boys, Damien and Craig, who were all on a family vacation. The park was starting to wind down for the night, and John said to his sons that they could choose one more ride, so they chose the ghost train. So at around 10:15 p.m, John and his two sons, Craig and Damien, went to the ghost train, and Jenny Godson decided to go and get ice cream while she waited for them. Also in the lineup for the ride were 5 schoolboys named Seamus Rowley, Richard Carroll, Jonathan Billings, Michael Johnson, and Jason Holman, all aged 12 and 13 at the time, and Jason actually is the only survivor of that group. Within minutes of the ride starting, about 35 people who were believed to be on it were engulfed in thick smoke, which began to escape through the tunnel doors, and this alerted staff to something being wrong. The ghost train is one of the oldest in the park, and because of this, it had inadequate coverage of the park's fire hose system, which meant that the ride was able to be completely consumed by the fire within minutes. Staff didn't attempt to stop the ride. They thought that it would be easier and quicker if they continued the ride and just helped guests from the carts. Once firefighters arrived, it took them over an hour to get this fire under control, and this was because of the low water pressure within the park. They actually had to use water from the harbour to fight the fire. The entire rides building collapsed into a pile of ash, and they believed that all passengers had escaped. However, at 11:30 p.m, the bodies of 7 people would be discovered. Those among it was John Godson and his 2 sons, Craig and Damien, and the 4 schoolboys, Seamus Rowley, Richard Carroll, Jonathan Billings, and Michael Johnson. Luna Park had to be shut down for a federal investigation. It had also been found out Luna Park's management had failed to develop an adequate fire suppress program despite recommendations by North Sydney Council and the fire department 18 months earlier. The government called for new tenants to operate the park from 31st of July 1979. And the investigation was kind of left until it was reopened 8 years later in 1987. May of 2000, Anne Buckingham, niece of Sydney Underwood figure Abe Saffron, said in an interview that she believed that her uncle was responsible for the fire. He had been responsible for several other arson attacks, and her reasoning was she believed that Abe wanted to use this as a plan to gain control of the park's lease, but didn't mean for anybody to die. There was a 3-part series that aired in March of 2021. It investigated potential evidence around the fire and who could be linked. It did go into evidence about Abe Saffron having possible links to the fire, but as of today, no one has been charged in connection with the park's fire, and the families are still left without answers.
Well, you won't be catching me at any fairs or festivals this year.
This is considered Scotland's most mysterious unsolved crimes, and something they would call one of the most baffling murder cases of modern times. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Alistair Wilson. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, my man's got his own little intro. Okay. Making a true crimer.
Alistair was
a
a
30-year-old
father of 2 children, and they lived in Nairn in Scotland. And Alistair was the business manager at the Bank of Scotland. By literally everyone's account, Alistair is a wonderful man, a phenomenal father, a loving husband. He does his job and does it really well. He is a nice guy, and there's just nothing bad you can say about him. Alistair didn't have any enemies. He didn't ruffle any feathers. He was just a guy living his family life. And then November 28th, 2004 came, and the mystery would begin. At approximately 7 p.m. that day, Alistair was upstairs in his home as he was reading bedtime stories to his 2 boys. The doorbell rang, and his wife, Veronica, would go answer it, and then a man who was wearing a baseball cap, a dark blue jacket, and dark jeans would ask specifically for Alistair Wilson. So Veronica calls for him, and he comes down. When he opens the door, the man gives him a blue envelope, and it has the name Paul written on the front. Alistair then walks to his wife, hands her the envelope, and then he goes back towards the door. And then, boom, gunshots rang out. Veronica runs to the door. Alistair has been shot 3 times, and the mystery man is gone. Detectives at first begin to question, his wife, because usually that's the first person you go to. But, she's completely cleared of any wrongdoing. Well, then maybe his bank job, because he has a high position in the bank, so maybe he pissed someone off and he didn't know it, and then this was the end result. Well, they looked into that too. They found really nothing nefarious. They found no suspicious activity from his job. He was just clean as a whistle at work. So police released the description of the killer, the little description they have. They first described him as kind of a heavier set guy, but I guess later that would change to he was actually more of a thinner guy and younger. On December 8th, 2004, as police are still kind of investigating the home and around the home, they noticed in a drainage ditch a gun. I can't show the whole thing because, but they found this weapon inside that drainage ditch just outside the home of Alistair. It was a German-made handgun that basically could fit in the palm of your hand. Tiny little thing. It was a pocket pistol that was made in the 20s and the 30s. And it used .25 caliber bullets. Now, the blue envelope did appear to have some DNA on it because the police have DNA evidence in this case, and they've actually run that DNA against well over 1,000 different people, and they've never gotten a match. But they were just completely baffled. There was no reason for this to have happened. You could say it could have been a random killing, but the guy asked for Alistair Wilson specifically. He said his full name, so whoever the shooter was knew him, or at least knew his name. And he deliberately handed him an envelope with the name Paul on it, which, by the way, Paul had no connection to anyone in Alistair's life. The case went cold. I mean, ice cold. They had no idea why this happened. There was literally no reason for this to have happened. No motive. Nothing. Nada. Zilch. It was a complete conundrum. Until about 2022.
Oh, wow.
This year. Pictured here is the Havelock Hotel, and it was literally right across the road from where Alistair and his family lived. Police would uncover something just literally this year, or towards the end of 2021. Alistair Wilson had filed a complaint, I guess, against the hotel. So this is where it is. So the hotel wanted to build a deck and expand the property. Alistair said it's already noisy enough, so he said, I'm going to object to this since it's right by my home. Well, then witnesses came forward very recently that said in the hotel itself, people were openly talking about Alistair complaining about this deck. And then it was starting to spread around a nearby bar. People were talking about it back in 2004 when this murder happened. So the owner of the hotel from back then, he now lives in Canada, and police from Scotland have now traveled to Canada to question him. By the way, the decking that he objected, it would end up being built. So the hotel knew of his objection. And then 2 days after they hear about this objection, he's mysteriously shot on his own doorstep. The original owner of the hotel had connections with a guy that may fit the description of who shot him, but this guy would have been much younger and much thinner than he was described as. But that's all there is right now. No one's been arrested, no one's been charged. They haven't even confirmed it's about the hotel. So this is still a crazy mystery.
Man, look. How many cold cases do you guys think are out there, Crimes that just go unsolved. No one has... that would just be wild to me, But with this one here, I kind of got a real good feeling as to why they came and did what they did. But you can't prove it, right? But anyways, these are some scary true crime TikToks that you probably should not watch before bed. If you like the content, don't forget to subscribe, turn your notification bell on, and until next time, YouTube, Peace.